In today's video, we're going to be looking at the McFarlane toys. This is The Walking Dead 10-inch Negan with Lucille. The packaging claims that Negan stands 10 inches tall, and the tape measure does agree with that. The figure is 10 inches in height. Mind you, if you count to the tip of Lucille, for example, if he is standing inside a bookcase, then you would want to account for the figure being about 12 inches instead. There's a mild bit of assembly when you get Negan out of packaging. First and foremost, his arm, this arm right here, comes attached or detached. You have to attach it when you get out of the package. And also the bottom of Lucille, I'm going to show you here, also comes separate. Of course, he also comes with his display base. Why don't we spend a little time talking about that first. The base is, well, it's about like asphalt or, pavement in some regards. One thing that does bother me about the display base, though, if I take Negan off of it, squeak, 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 he has one short peg and one long peg. I guess this is to tell you which way he's going to face, but in all honesty, I don't understand why they had to put a long peg mixed with a short peg. Why couldn't they have just been both short pegs? Sure, it tells you that obviously by the height of this one peg, it's only going to go for this foot here. The heel is going to go for the longer peg, but you're going to spend more time trying to get the heel onto the longer peg with a lot of squeaky sounds, while the smaller peg fits very easily onto his foot. And we just kind of line up everything here, pegs that right into place. I don't, again, understand why it has to have such a long peg to what I think could accomplish the exact same thing if he had just used a smaller peg. Because a lot of times you'll just keep forcing it down. You'll just have all this extra peg gap in between the heel and the base. We'll take this off for a second. Oh, if you don't like squeaky sounds, this is definitely not the sort of figure you want to be taking off and removing from its base a lot. So anyways, going back to the assembly of this guy. So basically how it works is, I'm going to take one hand out of Lucille, kind of just slide up Lucille. We'll take it out actually altogether. So when you get out of packaging, essentially the arm is like this, and then Lucille is kind of like this. And he's literally one arm. He's a one-armed guy. And what you'll need to do is take the secondary arm, slide it through to the bottom handle of Lucille, like so. And then once that's in place, peg the shoulder into the socket, kind of wiggle it in place, and then you've got him holding both ends of Lucille. And then go ahead and just take the bottom of the baseball bat, peg that into place, and you've got yourself the desired look. Desired look wise, it looks good, and of course he's pre-posed. There's not really a whole heck of a lot you can do with him. Now granted, what you can always do too is you can take the one hand out of Lucille, and because he has posability, you can bring his arm down, but you'll see right off the bat it creates this awkward looking gap where obviously arm used to be. Arm is there no longer. So it is unfortunate that it does tell you pretty much it has to look like this. Of course you can do the same thing with this arm here. You can bring the arm down, but again, really, what are you going to do? It looks like he's literally in a cartoon and he's about to dash away. So, yeah, he's pretty pre-posed in that regard. So we'll go ahead and just slide the bat into both hands where we started this review. And then just feed it to the bottom. There we go. And then attach the bottom of the bat. There we go. Overall, he looks good. Like I said, he's got a good flow to him, even though he is pre-posed. To get everything lined up and to get everything so it doesn't look like there's any breakage of his arm, that's about, let me just bring this up a little bit. There we go. bring this up, bring this up. That's about where you'd want it, where it naturally fits the flow of the sculpt. So he's in a swinging back, about to clobber somebody's face in, and or knock somebody's eyeball out. I'm sure nobody has missed out on the opener of Walking Dead. Yeah, well, obviously I'm not going to say who unfortunately met their demise at the hands of Negan, but I'm sure you probably have watched it by now. So looking at the statue, I'm not going to call it a figure. I refuse to call this a figure because though yes, it has some posability, it pretty much tells you and dictates to you exactly how this figure is supposed to be standing. Oh, and I did say figure. Let's first maybe start with his face and we'll work our way down. And I have to say right off the bat, his face is probably the weakest thing about this entire figure. Lucille is good and has some nice paint work there, although a little sloppy when it came to the chainmail, or the barbed wire, I should say, chainmail, the barbed wire wrapped around the bat. It seems as if they just took a brush and just went like this. Oh, we missed some of the barbed wire. Oh, we got it onto the bat. Who cares? We're just going to keep doing it until everything kind of looks like it's, you can clearly see like there's silver that's gone into the bat as well. Unavoidable, I suppose, just shy of going in and painting each of the individual wires, the barbed wire on here. But I mean, from a distance, you're not going to notice it as much. But what you do notice, though, is I don't feel like that's a great head sculpt. It seems very slightly cartoony. In fact, the smaller Negan figure that we did look at on this channel, I think looked better than this one right here. I mean, to be fair, you're putting this one in a pose where you're not necessarily going to be seeing the figure face on, even when you have the figure turned this way. You're really still looking at a figure's head that's slightly tipped down. So you're kind of lucky enough that you don't have to see its full head sculpt to know that it seems slightly off. There is this head sculpt on Negan. Some additional, maybe excess levels of white have been added to his beard. But he doesn't really seem like it looks all that much like him. Instead, it just looks like a guy with really big eyebrows, a beard, and slicked back hair. At least the rest of his body comes together quite nicely, and between the leather jacket, some additional silver that's been added into the zippers. Here he has the red collar, the scarf here, which really doesn't make much more of an appearance into the show. A few here and there, but mostly he's just got the white t-shirt underneath his belt, and a fairly decent looking sculpt on his pants, though they are pre-posed. We can't do anything with them. Right down to his boots, which are done nicely as well. Here is a little bit of posability, but really what are you going to do with it? It's almost a unfair tease by McFarlane Toys. They give you the display base, clearly pegging exactly where the feet have to go, and then they tease you by putting articulation in the feet. What is the point of this? Why even bother doing this? Speaking of posability, let's go ahead and go through Negan's here. His head is technically on a ball joint. So, I mean, you could, even though he's swinging this way, he's winding back and swinging forward. His head probably doesn't make sense to be there. You may want to have it closer to what he's going to be smashing. Articulation in the shoulders and hands, but again, really, what are you going to do with them? Nothing is the answer. Waist swivel, and then you've got the foot articulation or boot articulation. About the only thing that I would say is logically an accurate bit of articulation is the waist. And while rotating that, you will find a lot of times, I've done this a couple of times already, that the waist does pop itself right off. It's really, I don't know if it's just my particular one, but I noticed this one pops off a lot. And it seems as soon as you start kind of twisting it further past where McFarlane wants you to keep it, then that's when you start getting the waist, the torso here, starting to pop off from the lower leg area. All around, not a bad figure, but yeah, it basically tells you exactly how this guy is supposed to be posed. For most collectors, I'm sure if you're going to be picking this guy up, you're going to see him as he is presented in the box. You're going to know right away that he's probably going to be a pre-posed figure, or if anything, hopefully this review has helped a little bit as well. He's got a good sculpt. He's got a good paint. He doesn't really have the greatest of face sculpts, but again, you can kind of get away with it by having the head slightly down, that you really don't see it as much. But I do think it's not one of McFarlane's best likenesses for Negan we've seen in figure form. There I go again saying the term figure. Something I really do want to mention is the use of figure. They're indicating here clearly on the package that you can see here in this final looks as deluxe action figure. What constitutes deluxe? What constitutes action? And what constitutes figure? Deluxe from the standpoint maybe it's a bigger figure. Action from the standpoint that he's in an action pose. He's about to clobber somebody's face with Lucille. About the only word of those three that I want to really debate more so is the term figure. Figure from a standpoint of making him out of plastic and the fact that he has a little bit of posability could constitute the term figure, but he really is not at all a figure from the regards that you can make him a superposable, pose him in pretty cool different ways. You're really not going to be able to do this with this particular Negan. And once again, why would they even put articulation in the feet when clearly he's pegged in such a way you can only display him like this? You get a little bit of wiggle room with the waist, you get a little bit of wiggle room with the arms and the head, but ultimately all of which looks awkward that this will then be your go-to default. Still, he's not a bad figure if you like this pose of Negan, but I don't think it's one of McFarlane's better looking Negans. I would almost even go with the smaller version of the figure, which I think was the color top, or it was the smaller 8-inch figure. So I would probably go with that one before I would go with this one, even though this one's got a more dynamic pose. Either way, though, today we were having a look at the McFarlane toys, The Walking Dead. This was Negan with Lucille, 10-inch, and I'm going to put in quotes. You can't see it. I'm doing quotes right now. Deluxe action figure. It's not a deluxe action figure. If you guys haven't had a chance yet to hit that little subscribe button down below, you'll never miss a beat when it comes to future videos. And speaking of videos, feel free also to go back to my homepage and scroll down the section that says videos. You'll be able to see maybe some videos that you might not have had a chance to check out already, and feel free to comment in those so I'll always know that you guys are watching the older stuff as well as the newer as well. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.